I was born and raised in California, and I have really good memories of eating super creamy clam chowder with my dad, of course, out of a sourdough bread bowl. Since going grain and dairy-free, it's not really an option anymore. So in my first cookbook, Against All Grain, I recreated my very favorite summertime soup with cashews instead of dairy. So we're starting with some bacon that I've chopped, and we're just going to add that to the pot and let some of that fat render so we can cook our vegetables in bacon grease. And while that cooks down, I'm going to chop up some celery. I've got 4 kind of small stalks here. All right, and then I'm gonna cut up this guy. This is a celery root. I use it in place of a white potato because I can't tolerate them. Also, if you're eating on SCD or GAPS or you're trying to stay low carb, this is a really great alternative. I know it looks a little bit scary. It's all kind of bulbous and has lots of little things growing off of it. But what you want to do first is get a nice clean side. And then you can just go ahead and chop all these guys off as well. You can use them, but it's a little bit easier to peel it. Now you can take a vegetable peel. This is actually a pretty soft skin, but I just like to set it on its side and just kind of take a sharp knife and go down all around it. And just get all of that funky looking stuff off. Okay, now we'll just dice this up. All right, let's check in on our bacon. I smell it. Just add all of your veggies to that pot and our yellow onion. And then just go ahead and throw that bay leaf and your thyme sprigs in as well. Give that a good stir. And we've got some sea salt as well. We're just going to let those veggies cook down about 8 to 10 minutes, just until they're about crisp tender. So we're going to add 2 8-ounce bottles of clam juice and 4 cups of water. Put a lid on it and let it simmer for 20 minutes. So remove about 2 cups of the soup, vegetables and all. We're going to puree that with the cashews and it'll help thicken the soup. And then we have our soaked cashews. Soaking cashews helps to make them break down when you're blending them and get a little bit smoother. Also helps them to be a little bit easier to digest. Pop our lid on there. Now, of course, be careful blending hot liquids. Make sure you have a little bit of a vent. So what you want is for this to look almost like a really kind of like mashed potato puree. And we'll put this back into our pot and then just stir that all together to incorporate the cream. And now is a good time also to go ahead and just pick out that thyme and bay leaf. You see them floating there. Okay, so I'm just going to crank that heat back up to let this simmer. And as it simmers, it's going to thicken even more. Just 5 to 7 minutes or so. Just keep an eye on it and go ahead and turn that heat down when it gets to the thickness that you desire. Okay, the very last step is adding our clams. Clams can get tough really quickly, so make sure that your heat is just about low to medium low and get those folded in there and just stir them long enough to heat them through. It should only take about 1 minute to 2 minutes. So I always err on the less salty side when I'm making this just because I don't know how salty the clams are going to be, and then season it to taste right at the end. So it may not be quite as good as a sourdough bread bowl, but I am going to serve this with some of my grain-free blender bread and just sprinkle with some green onions. All right, guys, dairy-free clam chowder with grain-free bread. For the full recipe, see againstallgrain.com.